Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be taking yet another look at Soul Calibur, released in 1998 on the Namco System 12 arcade hardware. And of course, as you can see, this is my world version that has Arthur replacing Mitsurugi, as you can see in the little intro snippet there. But all the characters are available just like in our last video. In this video I'm actually going to play as Edgemaster. And now this is one of those characters I really kind of enjoy playing because I'm pretty good at most of the characters in the original Soul Calibur, so it's kind of like a roulette that will I get one of the better characters I'm good at playing? Will I get one of the worst characters, like the ones I'm not so good at playing? Who really knows? So it's actually really fun to try these Edgemaster gameplays, because you never know. You could get like your worst character on the first gameplay, or you could get your absolute best. Like for instance here, I actually have Ivy, who's not really that strong of a character for me, but the good thing is since it's just Stage 1, the difficulty isn't too high. If I'd gotten this character at, say, Stage 7 or Inferno, there probably would have been, like, legitimately no way I could have beaten that unless I did, like, crazy cheap moves to knock him out of the ring. And, of course, in the home version, you can play as Inferno, but you can't play as Inferno in the arcade version here. That wasn't an option yet, so the only difference between Edgemaster and Inferno is Inferno has a few unique moves that Edgemaster doesn't have, but other than that, they pretty much do the same thing where they just randomly imitate characters between rounds. And yes, that will change between rounds, as you can kind of see here on Boldo in this round. And then when the next round starts out, I will be imitating a different character entirely, which is actually Lizard Man. And that's the funny part about this game. The good thing about all of the characters having different styles and different weapons, it's a lot easier to figure out what character you're actually playing as. Whereas I could remember in Tekken when I'd play as like Mokujin, certain characters have very notable like fighting stances, like Eddie Gordo, because he does that that dance that he does when he's standing normally. But if it's not like Eddie Gordo or Yoshimitsu, 9 out of 10 times I have to do a lot of moves in Tekken in order to figure out who Mokujin was actually imitating, because a good deal of Tekken characters kind of have a fairly similar ready stance, so you don't really know, oh, okay, this is Jen, or this is Anna, or this is Nina. Because not a lot of them, like in Soul Calibur, like you can tell I'm playing as Yoshimitsu here because, you know, the flag on the back and the katana. But not a lot of the Tekken characters have like very unique stances. And I believe this is Rock and not Astaroth, because I think Astaroth holds his axe a little bit different. Basically, the only thing here is Edgemaster has that character's moveset applied to him. So any crazy moves they do, like, the funny thing is to see him do certain Voldo throws, he just looks hilarious. Oh, and another thing, I don't know if I'd made mention of this in my previous video, but when it went from arcade to console, the Dreamcast version added a heck of a lot more voices. So instead of your normal hi-yas and grunts that most characters give off, and the minimal, like, ending phrases, you'll have a lot more actual stuff they say. Because there were a few times I remember I was playing as Song Mina in that gameplay, and she just ends the thing by going, "Ya?" And I'm thinking, in the console version, doesn't she always say something? But you gotta remember, on a 1.2 gigabyte GD-ROM, or however much it is, you have a lot more room for compressed speech, whereas here on the Namco System 12 that just has a limited ROM space, you do not. And as you can see, this is the Edgemaster Song Mina weapon, which is more of a trident. And that actually was a cool thing you could do in the console version. I believe it's one of the shoulder buttons that you hit, and it'll say Weapon EM, meaning you'll be the regular character, and you will actually play with the Edgemaster weapons. And I don't know if you noticed there, but that was the only actual loss that was in this gameplay. But unfortunately, when you play somebody like Edgemaster, it's easy to notice, because I think I was imitating Lizard Man in the intro there, and then all of a sudden it's Arthur when you get into the match, and of course the timer jumped a little bit, because I think I might have lost to Taki once. But that's one thing with Edgemaster and Inferno. If I cut a loss out, you will notice it, because the character they're imitating in the like kind of intro thing there, where you see the two characters face off, will be different from the actual gameplay, of course. But yeah, as I was saying, a lot more speech in the home version than the arcade, because there's limited ROM space. But yeah, the one thing I will also reiterate that I'm sure I'm going to say in a lot of the videos that I make of this is, when it gets to those close-ups when you're seeing the you win or you lose, you can definitely notice the 32-bit texture work. And although a lot of people will say it looks pixelated and it looks nasty, I just appreciate like how much they were able to get into this enhanced PlayStation spec on the Namco System 12, when really there wasn't really a lot of room for that. And I know I made mention of it in the previous video, but this actual arcade version was released in Japan in July 30th of 1998, and then of course some other time in 1998 in the US, whereas July 30th is the Japanese street date for this game. Then of course the Dreamcast home versions were released in 1999, August 5th in Japan, September 9th in the US in North America, and November 26th in Europe. There was an Xbox 360 arcade version, which sadly was lacking online play, which would have made it such a great game, on July 2nd of 2008. On the iPhones and iPods, you got your iOS version on January 19th of 2012, and then of course finally Android got their version on November 20th of 2013, which I know I had made mention of last time, has since been delisted, and the only way to play the Android version is if you have the APK and the OBB data, and you can sideload it on any device that doesn't have like a app lock that doesn't let you install unverified apps, which any of my Samsung devices have just allowed me to install it, and it just works. I haven't tried it on my latest phone. I'll have to do that at one of these points, because honestly, the Android version of Soul Calibur is actually pretty good. In fact, one of these days I may actually just do a video on the Android version, just kind of showing it off really quick, just to show you what it looks like. But yeah, I just realized I probably could do that on my modern phone. But this is your destined battle. And the one thing I will absolutely notice is that a lot of times the characters aren't really holding the weapons in this game, especially Song Mina and Keelik's staff weapons. It looks like the weapon is more or less just floating in the area of the hands. Whereas swords, it doesn't like have such a problem. Whereas the staff, it just looks like a little off. You can tell that it's more or less floating in midair where the hands are, and the hands aren't really gripping it. And in fact, sometimes I noticed Song Mina where legitimately the staff was clipping her hands. She's not holding it, it's just kind of sitting there in midair. But, you know, fairly early 32-bit technology, and having to do something in graphics that's a little bit hard, but, you know, it works well enough. I just noticed some jarring scenes of it when it's kind of one of those destined battles, and it just kind of looks at their hands, and you can kind of really notice, oh, well, they're not so much as holding the staff, it's just kind of there. But Yeah, this is where it kind of gets a little harder in Stage 7 with Edgemaster. Like, if I were to get Ivy right now, instead of Lizard Man, Lizard Man has a decent amount of strikes that I was able to take advantage of here, there would have been no way I probably would have won this battle without having to continue. But, I don't know if I made mention of it in any of the previous two videos. Of course, the Arthur video released crazy long ago, and the Songmina video just released a couple weeks back. But the one thing I definitely appreciate, even though these games don't have the best of graphics, the backgrounds look really nice in this 32-bit rendition of this game. And then here's our dramatic video with that, Inferno coming. And now if I lose the Inferno match, that's another one if I actually cut the losses out. Inferno will start his intro every time with the Soul Edge as his weapon, whereas if you continue, it's going to be some other random weapon just like Edgemaster, so you will not have that same weapon being chosen. But yeah, as I was saying, well, other than this stage, which is just like a star background, all of the stages look so nice in this game. Even though, you know, your 32-bit technology pales in comparison to what was shown on Dreamcast, but it just gives you an example of some nice background work, even in, like, a slightly souped-up PlayStation spec that the Namco System 12 uses here. And it just ends up looking really nice for an arcade game, like, released in 1998. So, it's one of those many things I can just really appreciate when I just look at older graphics that honestly hold up really well even to this day in 2026.
You win!
And then here is Edgemaster's ending. Okay, and that was Edgemaster's ending, that he got the evil of the Soul Edge, and now he's, like, harnessing it to become more powerful. But, yeah, definitely, if you've never played Soul Calibur, or honestly even tried the arcade version, it feels fairly similar to the console version. It's not like a Dead or Alive situation where it feels like the PlayStation version was more or less built from the ground up and it's like even not the same game in a respect, but Soul Calibur's gameplay kind of holds up the same when it comes to Dreamcast and Namco System 12 here. It just has a very good gameplay flow, and even back on this original fairly rudimentary PlayStation-based hardware, it just has that nice flow, that nice combo system where, honestly, even new players can get behind it, but, you know, it takes a bit to really master a lot of the different fighting styles. And that's one thing I really appreciate about Soul Calibur is you can have somebody who spams every move and tries to be the cheapest person in the world, and if you're an experienced player, you can find ways around their spamming, like Songmina's twirling her staff around, because you could sidestep that, and you can do low attacks that'll easily hit her and negate that whole strategy. But yeah, definitely have to say, Soul Calibur is one of those games that it defined like weapons-based fighting games, and at this point, there's no going back when it comes to how great this game is. But if you notice that I never end up entering my name in any of these gameplays, the times are so low that even if I didn't lose, I would not beat them. So I didn't end up getting any high scores in any of my gameplays that I've played at this point so far. And for some reason, it doesn't keep the percentages of characters, but it still keeps the actual times. So I don't know why that is, but it's not one of those things that bothers me because it just shows the gameplay I've actually played. I might see if there's some point I can change the battery really quick and maybe fix that. But other than that, this has been another Game Nexus Arcade video, and I shall see you later. Bye.